Hour two of Budweiser's weekday sports beat with AverageBreakdown.com. And Vince slid back into it as Chris Collinsworth slide, getting right back in.
That was timing right there, baby.
That is timing. That is timing. It is rapid fire time. Are you ready for it, sir?
I am so ready for rapid fire. There's some good ones in here today.
All right, good. I'm always excited when you say
Yes.
there are some good ones. I feel like I bore you sometimes. So
Never.
we are ready to go. We are ready to go. Fill in the blank. The November 29th game between Notre Dame and Stanford being announced as a 10:30 p.m. Eastern time kickoff in Northern California to end the regular season is blank.
Ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous that Notre Dame is kicking off at 10:30 at night. I'm sorry. I know that other teams have done that, and, I'm sure their fan bases have been upset about it as well. They're in a conference, and you got to do what you do when you're in a conference. And now Stanford's part of the ACC, so, Notre Dame is kind of up creek because they have their ACC agreement, and it just feels like the ACC is just giving it to Notre Dame. That's what it feels like to me. They're doing all the social media about how Miami should be in over Notre Dame.
Yep.
And the whole deal, and they're poking the bear of the team that is like propping you up most of the time,
holding your conference together. Not even most of the time. If Notre Dame is not part of this agreement, the ACC, whatever, they feel like they need more money, like they wouldn't even be getting the money that they're getting now to pay out to their schools.
Correct.
Notre Dame wasn't part of the whole deal. So
I don't understand why they would do this. Oh, well, we want to have a night game for our fans. It's apparently what Stanford is saying. How about you sell out a game first, and then you can start giving your fans something? They're gonna get a Andrew Luck bobblehead, so that's gonna be cool. But 10:30 at night, I mean, the post-game show is going to start at 2 a.m.
So we talked about, as you referenced, we talked about these late kickoffs. These happened early in the season in September. Boston College played at Stanford. Michigan State played at USC, and they were 10:30 kickoffs as well. And as we talked about back then, this is not just a Notre Dame thing. I think it's ridiculous that any school that's in the Eastern time zone should have to travel to the West Coast and play a 10:30 p.m. kickoff game because, not only, most importantly, fortunately, this is Thanksgiving weekend and all, but those players are going to have, there's not going to be a game the next week, but those players are going to have to go to class all week. And you think, quality, class time is going to be quality because Boston College got back from their trip to the West Coast after playing a 10:30 p.m. kickoff at 9 in the morning. They got back to Boston at 9 in the morning. Now, obviously, it's closer to South Bend than it is to Boston, but at the same time, that is still a long flight. You're talking about a minimum 4-hour flight, and that's after everything that goes on after the game, press conferences, getting changed, showers, get your food, get on the bus, get back to the airport. It's probably like a good 2 hours between end of game, 2+ hours, end of game by the time you get to the airport. Notre Dame is probably going to get back to campus sometime between 7 a.m. and 8 a.m. Sunday morning after playing a 10:30 p.m.
sleep.
kickoff.
I mean, you're going to sleep on the plane, I suppose, but that's not real sleep.
Right.
That's terrible.
Right.
Your whole Sunday is then shot because then you got to sleep all day.
Yeah. And none of that is even taking into account the fact that you've got fans watching in the Eastern time zone a 10:30 p.m. kickoff. So you're going to get that game is going to get done somewhere around 2 a.m. Eastern time. Let me just start with this. Personally, you and I despise even an 8 o'clock or a 7:30 kickoff.
Yes.
So 10:30 takes this to another level. I would rather be locked in a room with Pat Narduzzi for a day than be made to sit through a 10:30 p.m. kickoff time. I don't even know how my brain is going to adapt to that. This is just an insult to the effects of tryptophan on the human psyche, for one thing, because don't forget this is Thanksgiving weekend. 10:30 p.m. on a Saturday
Yeah.
night. It makes me rethink my whole strategy about giving up the idea of walking the earth, meeting people, and getting in adventures like Cane and Kung Fu. Like, I don't know what I'm doing with my life right now, Vince. At 10:30, I never thought that this would happen, that Notre Dame would have a 10:30 p.m. Eastern time kickoff. But here we are. And, we've talked plenty of different times about just doing away with this Stanford thing. As of right now, there is no Stanford game in the future. Be done with it.
Yep.
Be gone.
If this isn't a reason right here to drop Stanford on its face, I don't know what is. Like, there's no reason to keep them on the schedule if they want to play you at 7:30 local time. None. Zero reason.
Yeah.
And we're all gonna be forced to be up, watch a kickoff at 10:30 at night. And I realize I'm old and I'm crotchety, and young people have no problem staying up at, whatever. I get it.
Yeah, I mean, like ESPN loves this. This is the old Pac-12 after dark time slot.
Yeah, right.
It's 10:30 p.m. time slot. And like, if I was finishing up like a 7:30 game at Notre Dame Stadium, like we had with Navy a couple of weeks ago, when I come home, I actually don't mind flipping on the TV and, like unwinding a little bit.
That's
after
the key,
I get home.
Unwinding.
But this is completely different. Yeah.
Yes. This is completely different. And there's no reason that Notre Dame should be playing in this slot. I'm sorry. There's just no reason.
Salty Virginia Peanuts in the chat says there's no way that's true, that I would rather spend the day with Narduzzi. He says, because there are limits to how much time someone can spend with Narduzzi in a room. Read the Geneva Convention carefully.
Wow.
I haven't brushed up on my Geneva Convention lately. Maybe Scott L. Esquire, the lawyer, can find me the Pat Narduzzi effect.
It's just the ACC is just turning the screws to Notre Dame. It's like they don't want them anymore. And I guess if I was Notre Dame, I'd be like, well, you're sending a very clear message with your social media posts and with you having Notre Dame as a 10:30 start. You're sending a very clear message that you don't want us a part of your conference anymore.
Yeah.
Okay. There's other conferences that will take Notre Dame's other sports. I guarantee it. I absolutely guarantee it. I would start shopping. I would start shopping around.
I think at this point you have to. Now, obviously, the options are somewhat limited, and there's some animosity, in different respects, with whichever conference. But I think it's at least worth exploring. I mean, most of the Big 12 schools, as an example, would be closer than the ACC schools, especially with the fact that you have Stanford and Cal factored in there. So,
yep, absolutely.
Jalen G says, what day does Notre Dame travel to California? They've done it differently. I think Freeman has done it. The West Coast trips, they've just done a typical day before the game on Friday. Like Brian Kelly at times, and I know back to Charlie Watt, they have done the team gets together, eat their big Thanksgiving feast, and then go get on the plane and fly to the West Coast, which when you think about that for a minute, feeding all those football players, all that food, and then you're getting on a plane and just think about the logistics of what happens, in a 4.5-hour flight. That seems like that could be, its own recipe. So I'm sure that'll be something that'll be asked next week of Marcus Freeman. What's the travel?
Yeah, it will be.
Yeah. It'll either be Thursday or Friday. No, but again, we got it to look forward to. Thanksgiving Day, or not Thanksgiving Day, Thanksgiving weekend. Notre Dame Stanford, 2:30 p.m. Eastern.
Saturday into Sunday. Just absolute ridiculousness. Yeah. And
if you're out in the bars, it's awesome. It's
sure.
It's all just a background while everybody's doing their thing, and hey, another Jello shot and whatever.
But here, we have to actually focus on the game and talk about it, and make,
and then do a post game show till 5 a.m.
Make reasonable remarks about first of all, a game that's going to be terrible. It's going to be an awful football game to witness. And we're all going to have to be holding up our eyeballs to witness this just car accident that is about to take place out in Palo Alto.
Correct. Ken Pluto wants to know if this is a Stanford call or the network. I mean, the TV network dictates all these.
It's the network, but I'm sure that
some influence, I'd say more influence from the ACC than Stanford itself.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
Stanford has no say when you have the record.
And they can like, hey, man, we'd love to have a night game at some point, and then they can be like, oh, how about Notre Dame? That kind of like. I'm sure there's discussion, but yes, at the end of the day, it's the network that makes the final.
But like, even it's officially winter right now, so even a 7:30 Eastern time kickoff, you're gonna get some night. It's not going to be night out there, but like during the game, like the sun is going to set probably, at some point during the first half. So
I think if they're going to do the back and forth, and if Stanford ends up on the schedule for next year, it's a home game for Notre Dame. I think it should be a 9 a.m. kick at Notre Dame, local time, so that's like a 6 a.m. kick for Stanford. I think that's what needs to happen. That's what I'm in favor of.
I'm with you.
Let's go 9. Let's go kegs and eggs, baby. We'll go early. We'll get this thing over with in time for the the big noon kickoff, basically.
I like it. Pitt looked like they might get a little bit of momentum on their side when they got the pick 6 late in the third quarter Saturday. But here comes Irish safety Adon Shuler, who intercepted the 2-point try and returned it the other way for 2 points in Notre Dame's favor. Scale of 1 to 10, how big was that play, Vince?
I think it was a big momentum shift because Pitt did have the momentum at that point. And they had it for about 37 seconds until Pitt snapped the ball for the 2-point conversion and Notre Dame took it to the house. It was like a 105-yard return. And that was very, like, they took whatever momentum Pitt had, gone, absolutely gone, because it's embarrassing to get a 2-point conversion taken back on you. That was an absolute 10.
It is, especially where he had to start from. Basically one side of the end zone, and the fact that it was a telegraph throw and just a really poor decision to make that throw to begin with. And then he cuts all the way to the opposite sideline and has to do a little bit of zigging and zagging to do it. It just, it's not like I felt like Pitt was going to mount some amazing comeback by any means, but at the same time, you get a pick 6 and, like all these different things kind of start to happen. And I remember, because I was at the basketball game and I texted Jesse, how did they get like 2 points? Why is the score, where did the 37? I'm like, where did that come from? Did they get a safety? And he was at the game, and so he told me what happened. So I give it a 9, like, because any momentum that Pitt felt like they had at that point was completely erased with Adon Shuler.
Instantly gone. He just sucked the momentum right out of that stadium. Like any kind of like, yeah, what a great play, gone, just absolutely gone.
Yes, exactly. So Fighting Irish safety Tae Johnson, of course, had a pick 6 in that game. He spoke with the media after the game, after the win over Pittsburgh, and he was asked about Adon Shuler. Here's what Tae Johnson said about his teammate, safety mate, Adon Shuler.
Adon, he's a fire starter. So, that kind of what it was for the defense, I think it was on third down if I'm pretty sure, but he's a fire starter. Adon brings the energy to our defense, and that's what we needed in that moment. They got a big play, like I think the first couple plays before that, and for Don to do that, it was a fire starter for our defense. It turned all of our energy up, and that's what we needed. So it was a great play for sure.
Three times he said fire starter in that clip. Tae Johnson talking about Adon Shuler. How do you like that nickname for Shuler, fire starter?
I dig it. It's out of the box, that's for sure. Nothing I would have ever guessed. It it doesn't like rhyme with his name or anything like that. I dig it. I dig it.
I do too. I loved it. And I was like, oh, fire starter. The first time I heard him say that, I was like, oh, fire starter. That's kind of cool. That's something different. And then he said it again. And then he said it again. It's like, man, this guy is truly like, he obviously, thinks of him as a fire starter. And that's what Shuler did. And, not just that play, but like, think back to that third down, Pitt's first third down of the game, where Shuler just like lights that Pitt wide receiver up, man. He blew him. That might be the biggest hit I've seen by any Notre Dame player this season, was that hit that Shuler laid on him. And I think that definitely set the tone for Notre Dame's defense with like how this game is going to be played, the physicality. And it just really felt like, again, we talked about this earlier in the show, that Pitt wanted none of that. And it absolutely was USMA 87, a totally clean hit. And that's like, anytime you see a big hit these days, that's the first thing you worry about is like, are they going
I
to call it a
know.
blindside hit? Are they going to say
Wouldn't have
targeting? All
surprised
these
me.
different things? He just shoulder to shoulder, helmet to ball and body. He just lit him up, and that dude wanted none of anybody on Notre Dame's defense the rest of the day.
I'm not sure they really wanted anything the whole game, but that definitely set the tone on that hit. I mean, that was
Career
awesome.
decisions. Career decisions.
Yeah,
that's right.
Exactly, 100%.
What would your nickname for Tae Johnson be? If Adon Shuler is fire starter, what kind of nickname we giving Tae Johnson?
That's a great question. Let's see. If he's fire starter, should he be like Flint and Steel or something like that? Like to help start the fire? Like
Spark?
Spark or something. Like I feel like it should be something together that has something to do with starting a fire. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I watched that like the remake of The Running Man came out in theaters.
Yes.
This
Was it
weekend.
good?
I haven't seen it yet.
Okay.
I watched before it came out, they've got the original Running Man with Arnold.
Oh.
And so I watched that and have you ever seen the original?
No, I have never seen the original. I didn't even know there was an original.
I think you should watch it came out when you were a young pup still, but I'm like they've got a lot of different, they call them stalkers in that, like guys who were hunting down. It's like a futuristic game show where like the Running Man was Arnold and he was, shot into the mean streets of LA. And then they have like different characters, kind of like pro wrestling, that go out stalking him and literally trying to kill him for a TV show of the future. But like Jim Brown was Fireball, Jesse Ventura was Captain Freedom. Like they had Dynamo and Buzzsaw and Sub-Zero. Buzzsaw, I think, is not a bad one for Tae Johnson when you think about some of the hits that he's made. Like the Igniter, not a character, but like it was like sparking some of the. I kind of like Buzzsaw. Like when you for
of
Johnson,
all the ones that you just said, Buzzsaw is the one. Yeah.
I think so. I think so. Make it a thing. Like it doesn't rhyme with Tae Johnson or anything. Just
Firestarter doesn't run with Adon Shuler, so it's all good.
That's right. So I don't know. We'll see. I doubt it sticks, but that's what I would go with anyway.
I think we just run with it. We'll start it. Start it here.
Realist LG ND Killer. Okay, says Dewey should be fire and ice. I feel like there are too many fire and ices though.
Yeah, like lightning and thunder. Like
thunder and lightning, fire and ice,
that a lot.
That kind of thing.
Yeah.
Mike says Sean is Richard Dawson. Who loves you and who do you love? That's right. Giving the kisses.
Dawson. He got away with
Richard Dawson played the game show host in the original Running Man, and that was
really
when he was like post-match game, and when he was doing the Family Feud, and he was tonguing all the women on the Family Feud, and they kind of spoofed the like the kiss in the Running Man. It was good quality stuff.
I'll tell you what, man. I feel like he's almost being imprisoned for like some stuff he was doing on that show.
I know. So we've got college football playoff selection number 3 coming out mañana, Tuesday. And we had something that Notre Dame didn't need this weekend. That was Oklahoma going on the road and beating Alabama. And the Sooners are ahead of Notre Dame at number 8. Alabama is behind the Irish at number 10 in both the AP and coaches polls this week. So on a scale of 1 to 10, how strongly do you feel that the College Football Playoff Committee is going to rank it that way, Vince?
Man, it's like a 5. I think that the overwhelming, majority of people think that both Alabama and Oklahoma should be above Notre Dame. And obviously that would drop Notre Dame to number 10. Before the AP poll came out, I was talking to a buddy on the phone and actually it was Brian. And we were, who else am I talking college football with? But we were talking about this, and I said, look, don't you think maybe Alabama should drop behind Notre Dame? Not far, like one spot, like behind Notre Dame, because I think their loss to Florida State still really stands out to me as kind of a bit of a deciding factor. Now, again, splitting hairs to a degree, but I think the AP poll got it right, and then the coaches poll did the exact same thing. I have no problem with Oklahoma jumping Notre Dame. That's fine. But with the way everything went, I think the AP poll got it right. I just don't know what the committee is going to do with it. That's the thing.
Yeah. And I agree with what you're saying. Like, to an extent, it's a similar situation to Notre Dame last year, that Notre Dame had the big win over Texas A&M, but they obviously followed that with a stinker. Like the how can this ever happen loss to Northern Illinois, and that's obviously what everyone wanted to hold against them all year. I am surprised that we haven't heard more anti-Alabama stuff, with the, well, what about losing to Florida State? Now, granted, like when you and Jesse and I were texting about this, and I looked at their schedule and I looked at it wrong, I was thinking the biggest feather in their cap was Vanderbilt, but they obviously have the road win over Georgia as well, so that's like,
that's massive.
That's the thing that they have that Notre Dame doesn't. Even though Notre Dame doesn't have a bad loss and Alabama does, Alabama also still has one of the better, if not the best win in all of the country as of right now, with that road win over Georgia.
Sure. I don't disagree with that. And that's the thing. It's like, okay, so what does the committee value? The better win or the worse loss? And we're going to find out, because if they value the better win, they'll be ahead of Notre Dame.
Mm-hmm.
If they value the better loss, then they'll be behind Notre Dame. The AP poll valued the better loss. We'll see what the committee does. I'm not 100% sure. I mean, I personally think that the AP poll got it right. But again, I also have a skew towards Notre Dame. I'll admit it. I want to see them do as best as they possibly can. I think a lot will be shaken out as we move forward. And this is only, the third rankings and all of those kinds of things. But I think Oklahoma at 8, Notre Dame at 9, Alabama at 10 is appropriate.
Say that again. Oklahoma, Notre Dame, Alabama.
Yeah.
Oh, I think it's appropriate, but my confidence that it's going to happen is probably along with where you are. You said 5, and that's about where I am as well, because, like, if nothing else, now, as I said a couple of weeks ago, the AP and coaches polls after the first college football playoff poll comes out, because, like, remember how, I won't say drastically different, but there were obviously some differences in how the AP and the coaches ranked things. And then the playoff committee poll came out for the first time. And as I said, the AP and the coaches poll will start to mirror what they saw in that CFP. I mean, they're basically copycatting. So
sure,
I think that has me even more concerned, just because, like, these polls do tend to be at least subtly different. Like, these people, like people in the media and the coaches obviously vote with whatever biases and, their righteousness and their senses of right and wrong and everything else. And the fact that they do have Alabama behind Notre Dame kind of makes me concerned that the playoff committee is going to go, no, Notre Dame is going to be 10, Alabama's going to be 9. They're not going to fall that far, because they fell 6 spots in the AP and the coaches poll, both with that loss. And again, they've got a better win than Notre Dame has on its resume right now. They have a worse loss, but they also have a better win.
It'll be interesting. I still think at worst Notre Dame is 10. And if that's the case, they're obviously still in, which is the most important thing. And at the end of the day, that's all I want for Notre Dame. But when the final rankings come out, I just want them to be in, because at that point they can just take care of whatever business they need to take care of. I just want them to be in. So I think worst case that they're 10. I'm hoping that they're 9. Like, that's where I'm at.
But things also start to get dicey at this point. If Notre Dame does end up being number 10, like Facilitate, where was it? I think I already accidentally got rid of the start. Facilitate said he thinks that they will be at number 8. I think that is very wishful thinking that they're going to move up this week. I think that Oklahoma is going to leapfrog past them because of the fact that, like I've said all along, that Kalen DeBoer's Alabama is not Nick Saban's Alabama, and I think that Kalen DeBoer's Alabama gets benefit of the doubt, kind of,
absolutely,
like on the, drafting off Nick Saban, basically, and that whole reputation. They're still a really good football program. I'm not taking anything away. They obviously were on the bubble and just missed the playoff last year. They're still good. They lost, to a good team, But at the same time, I feel like the human polls especially give Alabama much more benefit of the doubt. But like when I look at Oklahoma, okay, Oklahoma's got a blowout loss to Texas. They've also lost to Ole Miss.
Yeah.
One of those was a home game. And then they've got the win at Alabama. They've got a nice win over Michigan. But obviously, like, how much weight the committee decides to give this Alabama game is going to be the deciding factor, just because it might be the second or third best win of any team so far.
Well, and there's people out there that think, Oregon is going to fall behind Notre Dame. That's not going to happen this week. Now, if they lose to USC, if they lose to USC, yes, I think Oregon falls behind Notre Dame. And then at that point, I feel really, really good about Notre Dame's chance of just getting into the tournament. You know what I mean? Like right now, being in that 10 spot, you're literally the last team in at that point, because right now there's no ACC or Group of 6 team in the top 12. So 11 and 12 get chopped out. Those two get put in, and 10 is the last spot in. So I feel
if you do fall back to 10, you have to start looking in your rearview mirror a little bit to Miami, because the reason, like we talked about that a little bit, the reason that Notre Dame, like that loss to Miami, hasn't been held against them nearly as much is because the way the committee has looked at it. Remember when before the first playoff committee rankings came out, I read through that whole, here's how they do this. And they put these teams in tiers and like round after round of voting and all that stuff to put these teams into tiers. What they do, so they're like, they're like tiers of like 6 teams, I think. It's like 6 and then the next 6 and then the next 6 after that. Well, in the playoff committee's perception so far, the way they've evaluated these teams, Notre Dame has been ranked so far ahead of Miami that they're a tier ahead of Miami, basically. Well, if Miami keeps creeping up and Notre Dame falls back a spot, there's a chance that they could end up in the same tier. And so if that happens, then as the committee has said, then that head-to-head becomes more of a determining factor, because there is a head-to-head with 2 teams in the same tier now, and that could really ultimately end up costing the Irish. So what happens tomorrow is going to be pretty important. Like if they can at least hang there at number 9. I don't think that they're going to move up to number 8, but I'm also not overly optimistic that both Oklahoma and Alabama aren't going to be ahead of Notre Dame when the rankings come out.
Yeah.
But if they are, it'll be like, or if Notre Dame is ahead of either or both of them, it'll be like, okay, here's the next fan base to hate Notre Dame. Like we're going to see a whole different chorus.
Oh yeah.
From fan base it happens to be, because it's happened every week so far. We've actually got a little more time than I thought we did here, but I've blown a lot of stuff out because we went behind in the first hour, and then we went long with the first segment of this hour. I thought we've had some good talks tonight.
Yeah.
Like, go ahead and get a cold one.
Thank you. Appreciate you. Can I go now?
Sure, why not?
Okay.
Facilitate wants to know why Notre Dame would not jump Oregon based on what the Irish just did with the lopsided win over Pittsburgh. He says, I don't know. It just seems logical.
Because Oregon only has 1 loss right now. They're in the overrated Big Ten, and until they get a second loss, they're not going to go anywhere. And they just had a lopsided win against Minnesota. And I realize it was a home game. I understand that, but they're not going to drop Oregon behind Notre Dame after they won.
They're not going to drop any of those 1-loss teams behind any of the 2-loss teams as long as they keep winning. Like that's just like like you say, it sounds logical. It sounds logical from a Notre Dame fan, obviously. Like you want them to be ahead of it. And I get it. Pitt was a ranked team, but they're not going to drop any of those 1-loss teams behind Notre Dame. Like Notre Dame is fortunate when you look at the rankings that Oregon is at number 6, because what that means is if Oregon does lose one of these last 2 games against USC, who obviously Notre Dame has the head-to-head with, and or Washington, which are both rivalry games. Not USC's not rivalry, but like at least they have the connections, back to the Pac-12 and all that kind of stuff. But the Washington game, there's some rivalry there. But They lose either one of those games and Notre Dame keeps winning, Notre Dame will be ahead of Oregon.
Right.
I think most of the other 2-loss teams will be. I think that will drop them back. Notre Dame will have probably the strongest case because of the fact that they have the head-to-head over USC.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And yes, everyone out there needs to be a USC fan this week because you're going to have to root for them to beat Oregon. If they beat Oregon, Oregon falls behind Notre Dame. End of discussion. And if that happens, Notre Dame's pretty much a lock to get in at that point. So, yeah, go Trojans. Dun, 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 dun. That's all I got.
Yeah, I mean, that's all you can do is pull for USC.
Right.
At this point, pull for USC and hope that somebody knocks off Miami and, kind of sends that, weight floundering, whether or not that's going to happen.
I would love for Notre Dame to have a home game in the first round. I just think that is becoming increasingly less likely.
Mm-hmm.
And if Notre Dame's on the road, they're on the road. Like, that doesn't bother me. Notre Dame's a good road team.
At this point, you've got 2 losses, make the playoff, and
Yeah.
you've got as good a chance
to get in.
That's all you can
get in, because
regardless.
if you go on, you're going to go on the road against somebody that's very beatable because they're 5, 6, 7, or 8, right? So you're going against somebody that's beatable, and at that point, then you're neutral sites the rest of the way. So it's fine. Just get in.
I agree. I want to look at something here real quick. Yeah, that's what I I think Stymie took a nap this weekend. He says NC State could smack Miami this weekend. Who knows? The unfortunate part about that, Stymie, is Miami smacked Notre Dame or NC State this past weekend, 41-7. So that's not going to happen. All that's left for Miami is at Virginia Tech and at Pittsburgh. So you really need to become a Nardo fan.
Virginia Tech, they just got themselves a new coach, so maybe that'll fire them up to go make some noise in that game. You never know.
Yeah.
Stranger things have happened.
All right. Notre Dame men's basketball lost by a point at Ohio State yesterday, a day after the Irish women lost by 39 Michigan. In Detroit, Vince, would you rather stomach the 1-point loss or the blowout loss?
Oh, man. Well, I mean, that's tough because Notre Dame had control of that entire Ohio State game and then lost at the end. And that was a tough way to go out. I have a feeling, although I did not watch the women's game, that situation was no longer in doubt for quite a while. And there is a time where you're just like, okay, we didn't get this one. Let's just get through this game and get the heck out of here.
Yeah.
I would actually rather be blown out. I really would, because from a mental standpoint, when that final buzzer blows, man, I've already turned the page to the next game. It's time to move on. Let's get back on the bus and come back. When you have control of the entire game and you lose by a point, man, that guts you for a little while.
It is, but this is November, so I realize no coach is just going to cash it in regardless of what kind of loss you're, on whatever end of. Just because you win by, or lose by 1 point doesn't mean, hey, we've turned a corner. We're close, and it's going to happen for us. And just the same as, okay, you lose by 39. That doesn't mean it's the end of the world, and you can't be a different team. By the time March rolls around. But at the same time, I think that at least Micah Shrewsbury, as much as it just like kicks you in the midsection when you lose a 1-point game like that, and you can move past a blowout loss quicker. I think in year 3, where Shrewsbury is, like, it's easier to build on that for the short term, like where there's obviously more questions that have to be answered if you're on the women's side and you lose by 39 points. Like, was I 100% certain they were going to win that game? No. Was I pretty certain that it should at least be a fairly competitive game, for Notre Dame against Michigan? Yeah. And that's what was the most disconcerting, but the other side of this is Michigan had a ton of experience from an NCAA tournament team coming back. They had a 6'3" transfer, Patriot League Player of the Year from Bucknell. What stood out to me was the size factor. Like, it was decided. It was definite. And Michigan's size. They out-rebounded Notre Dame 50-28. And like the size thing was always going to be the biggest concern. And Notre Dame just didn't shoot well. They shot 28% overall. They hit 2 of 22 3-pointers. And that was just as big a factor as the size, is they just didn't shoot well. So like there's some things to figure out. They've got a few days, and then they've got USC, another NCAA tournament team, coming in on Friday. So not going to get any easier for the short term. I was talking with the Michigan radio guy after the game, the other day, and he said, I think you guys are going to look a lot different in March than what you look right now. And I said, I think that's still a possibility, but it doesn't make, this any easier to stomach. So again, between the two, I think right now I'd rather live with the 1 point than the 39 point.
It's fair. And you had to call the 39-point loss, so that's tough too.
Yeah.
Those games are so hard to call.
Oh, man.
I mean, especially if you don't have, I'm guessing Big Game Carol wasn't there. So
Karen,
excuse me. So that makes it really.
It was solo, baby. It was solo.
Yeah, that's tough, man.
But the network has filled me up with plenty of live reads this year, which is good for the bottom line. But it's like, I feel like every time I turn around, I'm working in another live read to these things. So that at least helped fill a little bit of extra time. It's rough, man. There's nothing worse than a blowout. Even blowouts in your favor are not the easiest.
Oh, absolutely. And when you and I used to do football games together at the high school level, and we would be involved in numerous blowouts where we were praying for the the running clock, because there's only so much you can talk about.
That's right. And you don't get running clocks.
No, you don't.
Basketball.
No.
All right, that's going to do it for tonight. We have plumb run out of time. We'll have plenty of stuff to talk about on tomorrow's show, though. Budweiser's Weekday Sports Beat with IrishBreakdown.com. See you, Vince.
See you.